Hi there, and welcome to Chimp Chat, a podcast aimed at helping you get the very best from your MailChimp account. Brought to you by those clever chimps at Chimp Answers, a MailChimp Pro partner. MailChimp email marketing is just what we do. Hi everyone, and welcome to Chimp Chats, where every week we'll give you the lowdown on how to get most from your email marketing, how to use MailChimp, and obviously update you on anything that's going on in the email marketing world that we really think that you need to pay attention to. My name's Robin Adams. I'm the owner of Chimp Answers. I'm the chief chimp there, Chimp Answers is a specialist MailChimp-focused marketing agency. And today I'm joined again by our resident MailChimp Supremo, Vicky Glass. How are you doing today, Vicky?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
It's the end of the week. I'm looking forward to a delightful weekend of relaxation and golf. So, all is good. All is good. Right, so let's get to it. Let's focus on today's question of the week. And today's question of the week is, what are zombies and why do they matter? Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we covered one of the key areas of email marketing that a lot of emailers, and to be honest, a lot of new emailers really take for granted. And that's getting into the inbox. Okay? Lots of new emailers spend time on design, they decide on the content of the emails, they seem to spend far too much time worrying about what the email looks like. They focus on things like subject lines and whatever. But they often forget to think about challenges of getting into an inbox, because you can't guarantee getting into inbox. 85% of all emails that are sent in the world today are spam. So the inbox providers are kind of like really looking at ways to make sure that when an email goes into someone's inbox, should it stay there or should it actually be moved to the promotional folder or the spam folder, which obviously is not where you want to be, because I'm sure your email is perfectly valid and really important, and you want to make sure that people actually get to it. So we obviously want to make sure that you're going into the inbox. Okay. But the problem is that one of the key metrics that a lot of businesses out there use, businesses are talking about inbox providers like Hotmail and Gmail and their Yahoo. One of the things they do is they use email engagement as a way of deciding whether someone gets into an inbox or not. So they look at the emails that you've sent over time, both just to that individual person, but let's say, for example, you've got a mailing list and 25% of your mailing list is on Gmail. Gmail will not just look at how one person interacts, they'll look at how everyone you're sending to in Gmail reacts to your emails, and based on how engaged they are or not in terms of whether they've opened, whether they clicked, all those other bits and pieces, they'll use that as a criteria for deciding whether your emails consistently go into the inbox or go into the promotional folder or spam folder. And that's where zombies come in. All right. Now, for those of you who don't understand, zombies is a phrase I actually coined a couple of years ago, and kind of like it's very visual in explaining who these types of people are on your list. So Vicky, for those people out there who haven't heard of the term zombies before, how do you describe a zombie to someone?
Well, if you're going literally, it would just be the Walking Dead of your contact list. But there are people on your list that have joined, and over a period of time, you've noticed that they don't engage, they don't click, they don't open your emails, they just don't do anything. They're just there and taking up space in your contact list. So those are the people that are zombies, where you'll probably never get them to do anything or to buy from you or to go onto your website or anything like that. So they probably just came in because you offered a freebie or something, and that was it. And after that, they do not care about being on your list. They don't want to relate with you or connect with you in any other way.
Yeah. But the frustrating thing about zombies is the fact that they're sitting there, they don't unsubscribe. They're just there.
No.
And when it comes down to it, the reason zombies are a problem actually are twofold. There's two specific issues with zombies. Issue number one is that ultimately you've got people on your list who you're paying for who aren't actually engaging. And then, and then the second issue is that every time you send an email to someone who is deemed a zombie, as it were, that is impacting your deliverability. So there's two key issues with zombies. There's the costs and the zombies. So Vicky, just on the cost point of view, and obviously MailChimp is not unique in this, most systems follow this. Can you explain why zombies may actually be costing you money?
So with MailChimp, there's obviously the free plan where you get 2,000 contacts free. So if you're then on the paid plan, or even still on the free plan, subscribers on your list count towards your contact limit. So if you're on a paid plan, you'll be paying for the people that are subscribers, regardless of whether they click into your emails, whether they open your emails, you're still paying for them. And obviously, the people that are on your list that are not paying, people that are on your list that are not engaging are just taking up space. So you're paying for them to literally do nothing on your email list. So yeah, subscribers count towards your cost. And with MailChimp as well, people that are non-subscribers also count. So and unsubscribers as well count towards your contact cost. So anyone really on your contact list count towards your cost and count towards your contact count. So you need to be really careful of who you have there and all the different segments that you have to make sure that the people that are there are the people that should be on your list.
Yeah, basically you're paying MailChimp or whatever email program you're using for the number of people that you can send an email to primarily. Now, MailChimp, because of the way it's set up, MailChimp even charges for unsubscribes and for non-subscribes, who are people who sign up for e-commerce but haven't actually confirmed for email marketing. Now, that's a separate question, but if you just look at the subscribers, and certainly if you've got a legacy account, and there's lots of people out there who've got a MailChimp account from 2, 3, 4 years ago, which is classified as legacy, you are paying for the number of people, for the privilege to send an email to your database, your full database. Now, if half of your database isn't interested anymore, is disengaged or whatever, you're still paying for them. I mean, like recently I was going through a client. They're a relatively large business and got a big email database. But we were looking at their account and we worked out that they could save £200 a month if they basically got rid of the zombies on their list. Now, £200 a month over a year for this business isn't a huge hill of beans. But what it does is that £200 could quite easily be, if you look at over a year, what's that, £2,500 or whatever, that's £2,500 that they could pay someone like us or an agency to come in and actually support and get even more from their MailChimp account than they got at the moment. So, obviously it depends on the size of your list. If you've got a small list, your cost is going to be minimal, as it were. Yeah. But, you need to be aware of it. But then obviously, ignoring the cost, there's the whole issue of zombies affecting your deliverability. Because, to be blunt, every time an email is sent to someone who doesn't open engage, a small black mark on your deliverability rating, as it were, gets added. And if you get too many of those, it basically means that your email is much less likely to hit an inbox. So zombies are not a good thing from your database. Okay? So now we've kind of understand why zombies are a problem, both from a cost and from a deliverability point of view. Let's focusing on how actually a zombie is created. Okay? So to start off with, you want to obviously minimize the number of people who are going to become zombies. All right? Because obviously once you've got zombies, you need to go through and do a zombie hunt, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, you actually need to try and stop people zombie becoming in the first place. So if you want to minimize your chances, what are some of the things? What's the first thing that you would suggest that they do, Vicky?
I'll probably say do not buy email lists. So do not go out there and go, okay, I need to email people that are into travel. I have no base. I'm just going to go to this company and buy a list and start emailing them and hope for the best. So make sure that everyone on your list are people that want to be there, are people that have signed up to be there, that have said, yes, I want to get your newsletter, not just, random list that you have bought from somewhere and thinking that it might get you some good results because you don't know where that list has come from. So always know where your email addresses have come from.
Yeah, obviously from the GDPR and privacy side of things, there's obviously elements in there, but fundamentally, if you're buying emails, don't, and certainly don't put them through MailChimp because you'll have a big impact in terms of your ability to get into the inbox. So that's one thing. Thinking about it, another thing that you can do, be careful when you're signing people up, so they're filling the form in on your website or whatever, that you're not over-promising and under-delivering. Okay, so you're not promising the world and then sending them something completely different or not sending any emails at all after that, because that's a fantastic way of generating. It's almost like saying, sign up for this and we'll send you A, B, C, and D, and then they sign up and they don't get it. Well, that's going to really, kind of turn them off, as it were. Now, obviously, some people will unsubscribe. But the thing with zombies is the fact that they just can't be bothered to unsubscribe. They are the walking dead. They're, you know, kind of like they're moaning in the background and not taking any positive action. So you want to make sure that people who are coming onto your list at that first point, they know what they're getting and they're going to get it, that you're going to deliver it. That's really important. Vicky, another thing that you can do to avoid getting a zombie problem.
Speaking of delivering things that you've promised, also when you are sending emails, the content should be good. So as well as that being good, you have to be consistent. So if you tell someone join my list and I'll send you a monthly email, make sure you do that and make sure it's good. So make sure that what you're sending them is something that's going to get them to open it, to engage, to click through and read your blog post, or click through and check out your new product. Make sure the content is good, is what they want, what they need, and it's consistently delivered. So don't go, I'm going to email you monthly and then I send an email this month, skip for 6 months and send them again in 8 months' time. Don't do that. Just make sure you're consistent with that.
Yeah, phrase I regularly use is you're only as good as your last email. So you need to make sure that your last email is a good one, which means that when people, you know, we talked about this last week with regards to subject lines and getting opens, as it were. We're talking one of the big things that matters from getting someone to open is your reputation, is your previous email. If that previous email was interesting and engaging, they're more likely to open the next email. And if they open that next email, they're not a zombie. So having good content that you're doing, really important point there. Well said, Vicky. Another way that you've got is to basically make sure that you're being relevant to your audience. And this is more of a kind of like something that I've got a little bit of a campaign on from a more marketing point of view. That there's too many businesses out there who are trying to deal with everybody. And the problem with dealing with everybody is that you can't be specific. And if you can't be specific, you can't be relevant. And if you can't be relevant, then people are going to get onto your list, get bored because the content you're sending is not good for them. And as a consequence, they're not going to be interested. You know, I'll take, for example, say, for example, that you're communicating with teachers. Now, this isn't a specific example. This is just kind of like just a general approach to it. But think about teachers. If you're sending to teachers as a whole, then yes, you can be specific to that group. But let's say you're being specific to maths teachers, for example. If you're speaking to maths teachers, the language and the way that you're going to approach it is going to be completely different. It's going to be a lot more focused into the topic, the subject matter, which means that math teachers are much more likely going to be able to read it. So if you want to make sure that you've got a really excited and engaged audience, try not to get everybody onto your list. Try and make sure the only people who are on your list are a very specific group, which means when you're sending them content, it's going to be interesting and relevant to them. And I accept the fact there's people out there who go, but, you know, kind of like, but that means I'm not speaking to these other people. Well, my response is, but you're not speaking to them now because your message is vanilla. It's magnolia wallpaper. It's not going to stand out from the crowd. The more specific and relevant you are to someone, the more likely that you are going to stand out and people are going to read your emails. And that is a great way of avoiding the issue of people becoming zombies. Okay. And it's not just talking about people who you get onto your list. Then, obviously, Vicky, once you've got them on the list, that segmentation doesn't stop.
Oh, no, definitely not. You need to just keep working, you need to keep zoning them in. So once you've got your teachers on your list, for example, so even if you're going to target all teachers, get them on your list and then find out who is a maths teacher, who's a science teacher, who's a French teacher, and you use segmentation to group them out and separate them. And then you can email just the maths teachers if you wanted to, because you've got them in a group or in a tag. You can email just the French teachers. So segmentation is amazing. It helps you target your messaging and makes you deliver it to the right people. So no point you writing an email to maths teachers and then going, who are the maths teachers on my list again? So once you've got that segmentation sorted, you'll know who exactly is where and who you should be emailing.
Definitely. And one of the things that people don't realise is there's a number of ways of, you know, when we talk about segmentation of your existing list, one of the, you know, people say, well, how do I do that? Because it's kind of like, well, you know, there are a number of ways. We've got some tools that are kind of like very easy to segment people between one or two particular areas. But one of the other things that you can do is you can use MailChimp surveys. One of the changes that MailChimp surveys put in place, I think a couple of months ago, is that you can now tag people based on how they've responded to a survey. So you could send an email out which goes, we'd love to know a little bit more about you. Click here. They click here, it goes to the first page, and using this teacher's example, they go there and it says, right, we know you're a teacher, but can you just indicate which subject you actually teach? You then get them to tick those boxes, and when they tick those boxes, it automatically tags them, which then means you can identify people down the track and send targeted specific communication to you, just like Vicky was saying. So don't just think about the people who you're getting into your list to start off with. Your segmentation doesn't stop there. You can still continue to segment your audience once you've got them to learn more, to be more specific and more relevant. Although do be careful. One of the things I always say to people is you don't want to kind of like disappear down that rabbit hole when it comes to segmentation and create too many segments, because the problem with creating too many segments is at times the time and effort that you need to speak to each of those individual segments may not actually be worth it compared to the benefit you're going to get. So be careful from a segmentation strategy point of view. So hopefully there are some ideas and things that you can take away, and just make sure that your database is a little bit happier, and there's less chance that those people who are joining your database over time are going to become zombies. But the fact of the matter is that there is always the likelihood that once you've got a database and once you started growing it, you can get a zombie problem. You know, I think most email lists out there have got some zombies, even if they're only one or two. You know, I certainly know my database on a regular basis. I need to go through and do basically a zombie hunt to identify and basically manage those people. All right. So if you have got a zombie problem, and a great way of looking at the people, and a simple way from a MailChimp point of view, let's keep it simple. You know, we look at a number of different ways, don't we, Vicky, when we do medicals for people, we look at them. The key thing that we'd suggest is use MailChimp's contact rating. It may not be perfect, but if you look at your database, create a segment of anyone who's got less than 3 stars, and basically 2 stars and below means that they ain't opening or engaging with your emails. That will tell you how many people fall into that category. All right. Now, the one other thing which I always forget to mention, Vicky reminds me of this when we do it, is that it's not just looking at your existing database. You also need to understand how long they've been on. Because you can't have, how should I put it? If someone's probably under, let's say, 6 months that they've been on your list, you've probably not got enough information to decide whether they've become a zombie or not. So almost what you want to do is you want to create a segment. So go to your MailChimp database, click the edit segments, make sure you're choosing subscribers, and then contact rating less than 3 stars, and join the list longer than 6 months ago. And that will give you a true reflection of how many zombies you're likely to have. Now, it's not perfect, but it's certainly a step in each business, asking how you criteriarize what is a zombie or not. That's going to be down to how many emails you send, how old your list is, how mature it is. There's lots of criteria, but that is a starting point, is a good way. And it'd be interesting if you could, when you're watching this on replay or whatever, just put in the comments and let us know, or send us an email and say, right, I did my analysis. I had 30% zombies, 40% zombies, 50, whatever the percentage is of your total database, because that'll give you a starting point to know whether you've got a rampant zombie problem or whether it's just something that you can manage in the background. Okay? So, once you've got a zombie problem, what do you do? What do you do? So there's basically 2 things. There's what you can do, but then actually kind of like working out how you do it. So what are the options that you've got when you've identified zombies, Vicky?
So assuming you've gone through the process of creating your segment, finding out how many you have in your list that are not engaging, you could just simply remove them. I mean, there's no reason why they should stay. Or you could keep them there, but then you don't send them emails as often. So, for example, if you know someone's hasn't opened your last emails you've sent in the last 3 months, you could go, right, okay, I'm going to email you monthly instead and see how you behave from that point, because it could just be they want to receive less emails from you. So you keep them there, but don't send them as many emails. But then the people that are engaging with your emails, you send them more emails, and that will also bring up your engagement juice. So that might then, if your emails are going to spam for those other people, the monthly email you send to them might bring it into the inbox. But also, if the cost of you having zombies isn't an issue, so if you can afford to keep them, then I would suggest definitely keeping them and trying to re-engage them, seeing how you can, bring up your communication with them, seeing how else you can get in touch with them. So, for example, if you're a seasonal business and you only sell things in Christmas, you may not just want to go, right, these people have not engaged with me in the last 9 months, so I'm just going to get rid of them. You would keep them, but it might be an idea to just keep sending them an email every month, every 3 months, to go, it's 6 months until Christmas or something like that. So definitely keep them and find ways of sending them emails in bits and bursts so that they still know that you're around and you're alive. But yes, you can still just decide to remove them and get rid of them. But you need to make sure that it's the right business decision, and also make sure that the stats you're using to segment your list is the right one. So if you're going by open rate, that might not give you the right results of a segment. So you removing them might actually remove people that are engaging on your list. So your options are remove them completely if you're feeling very drastic, or keep them but reduce how often you engage with them, and just make sure that and see if that makes a change to how they behave on your list.
Agree completely. You've got to remember, when it comes to why are zombies a problem? A zombie is a problem because you've sent them an email, yeah, and they don't open. So obviously you can, as Vicky just said there, you can remove them, or you can just not send them as many emails, because it's the sending of the emails that is the problem. So if you're sending an email every week to zombies, right, that's a problem. If you send an email to them monthly or quarterly, then the number of emails that are going to zombies is less, which means that the number of emails that are going to email the engaged people is as a percentage more, which means the engagement juice, as Vicky just described it, I like that phrase, I might use that a little bit more, your engagement juice is going to be going up. Okay, so you want to make sure that you remember that the problem with zombies nowadays, if you ignore the cost of zombies, and I'm not saying that everyone should ignore the cost. Some people, they may have a very mature database, a very big database, but there's a massive proportion of them that are just, kind of like dragging things down. But if you're not worried about the cost, then you need to be worried about the deliverability. And that means not necessarily deleting them, unsubscribing them automatically, but rather changing the frequency that you're communicating with them so that that helps. Okay? So once you've decided what you're going to do, you then need to go through the process, which we've christened the zombie hunt. Okay? You need to decide on your criteria. So is it the number of opens? Is it the contact rating? How old they've been on the list or whatever? Once you've identified your zombies, you create the segment, just like we were saying previously. And then what we'd suggest is, instead of just willy-nilly removing them and just going straight off, I'd actually suggest you send them an email. Because if you're using open rate as a criteria, we've already talked previously in previous episodes of how open rate sometimes isn't the best way to criterialize or understand whether someone's opened or not, because there's lots of issues with tracking open rates, and certainly with iOS 15 and privacy issues and all those other bits and pieces, it's going to be becoming harder and harder. So you don't want to just automatically remove people who you think are zombies, because it may be that that's a false zombie, as it were. It's not actually a zombie, it's just the data is suggesting they are. So your best bet is, once you've identified your segment, send them a series of emails. Ask them, are they interested? Do they want to receive their emails less frequency? Do they want to unsubscribe and they're not interested anymore? And do it in a positive way. Say, look, the last thing we want to do is send you an email that you're not interested. So if you're no longer in the market or no longer interested in this service, we'd rather you told us and we'd stop bugging you than sending you an email every month, which you're ignoring at the moment. So do it positively. You can use things like the MailChimp Preference Center, excuse me, to reduce the frequency of those emails. So you can ask them to, instead of go for a group of once every week, you can have monthly or quarterly, and they can choose how frequently they receive their emails, which then means obviously you're not sending them so much, which means you're not getting dinged, and your engagement juice is good enough for everyone to be able to hit the inboxes. Okay, so you do that, but then it may be at the end of that series of 4 emails or whatever, you say, look, we're going to get rid of you, we're going to drop you. Kind of at the end of it, you maybe end up with a proportion of people who still haven't opened, who still haven't engaged, and then you've got a choice. You can either remove them, you can manually move them to a quarterly or a semi-annual email, as it were. You've got lots of options, as it were. But remember, it's actually down to your business, and this is where there isn't one rule fits all. It's not like my business compared to a seasonal business matters. I was speaking to someone recently who runs an e-commerce business, and they never delete anyone. They never unsubscribe anyone unless they're obviously being asked to do so. And the reason being is they know that they can drip emails and people don't open or engage, as it were. But at some point in the future, they don't want to unsubscribe because they do want to buy that. They do want to make sure they're on the list, as it were. I mean, for me, it's being on one of the food delivery platforms, Just Eat. I don't read any of their emails, but every couple of weeks I decide, it's time for a takeaway, and I'll go and check and see whether there's a special offer or a discount available.
Yes.
So so I may be a zombie from Just Eat's point of view, but it makes sense for them to keep communicating with me in some way, shape, or form because I am going to be using their service on a regular basis, and it just reminds this. So always have a think about your marketplace and your customer base because that's going to be different for each of you. But you need to pay attention to zombies, and certainly the bigger your list, the more attention you need to pay to this. And one of the things I'll chuck in now as well is that one of the things that we're developing is on the back of MailChimp and MailChimp's customer journeys. We're now building automated zombie cleaning systems. It's like an automated zombie hunt that happens regularly, so you don't even have to do anything. So it automatically sets it up for you. So if you're in a business that thinks you've got a zombie problem, certainly get in touch and we can talk about automating that process so it just happens. You don't have to worry about it at all. So that's zombie. So hopefully if you weren't understanding and educated about what zombie is and why it matters, you are now. Any last thoughts on zombies, Vicky?
Yes, I had a last thought. Now you've asked me, it's gone out my head. While we're talking about that, I just had an example in my head. I recently dealt with a client and they had like 40,000 contacts or so, but actually half of those were zombies when we did it. So obviously that might sound like a big number. So if you do your segment and you get, oh my goodness, half my list are zombies, do not be scared about that. When you structure your engagement series, don't assume they're zombies. Just assume that you're just getting in touch with them again, saying, I'm just reminding you that I'm still here, but don't assume that they are necessarily zombies because they could be opening and not tracking properly. So when you are getting in touch to go stay or leave, just make sure that your tone is right there and you're not making them angry, thinking, I've been reading your emails. Why are you assuming that I'm not?
Exactly.
And don't be scared of the number of contacts that you get in your zombie segment.
Definitely, yeah. You don't want to. They may be zombies, but you don't want to call attention to the fact that you think they're zombies. So you kind of like you any email which you use as part of a re-engagement sequence almost needs to start. According to our information, we think you might not have been reading as many emails as we'd like. But you know what? If you have, please take this as an apology and just click here to let us know that you're still into us, as it were.
Yeah.
So you've got to, like I said, you can't go, you're a zombie, da 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 da. You actually need to be part. So that's a very, very good way of doing it. Don't assume that just because they've come up on the stats as a zombie that they actually are. Okay, you need to give them an opportunity to say, no, actually, you know what? I'm not a zombie, as it were. Put their hand up and say. So make sure you do that. Really, really useful. Right, so if there's anyone watching who's got any questions about zombies, I'm just checking to see whether there's any questions coming through. Don't think there are, but if you have got any questions on zombies that come out in the next few minutes, please shout and let us know. Otherwise, what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to our question of the week in the group. We always like to look at the Facebook group, the MailChimp Answers Facebook group, and pick a question from there and see if we can give some advice and put them in the right direction. So the question I've picked out this week is from Sammy Wolfson. And Sammy says, I'm trying to make a date-based mail campaign to promote an event. I would like to copy this automation and use it for future events. So for the first event, I'd like to send a message to a location-based segment 30 days and 1 day prior to the event. In this case, and she gives the date. How do I set this up? I see no option to insert a date for a trigger. So I've got some thoughts on this, Vicky, but do you want to kick us off? Any particular things you'd like to say to Sammy?
Oh, I've got lots of thoughts, but usually when I see, I've got a date-based campaign, my first thought is if you've got a fixed date, just schedule a regular campaign. Do not make your life difficult by going, oh, I need this to trigger by a certain date. If you've got a fixed date that you need to send your campaign from, schedule a regular email. That's usually my first instinct or first response to things like this. But what attracted me to this was he said he's going to set up an automation and then copy it for future events. So if you're going to send 5 emails for an event, it's going to be tedious to just keep replicating your regular campaigns every time, 5 times, for example. So an automation series here would be perfect. My thoughts are you could do it automation. You can definitely trigger by date, but the date has to live on your contact profile. So when people sign up for your event, you need to pass that date through to MailChimp to get stored there. So then when you use the trigger for automation, it will then go send it 30 days before this date on their contact profile. So the first thing you need to do is find a way of getting that date from when they sign up for your event into their contact profile. And then everything else would just be smooth sailing from then on.
No, that's exactly my advice. I like chatting to you, Vicky, because we are of the same mind when it comes to this. The first thing you need to do is in your form, and we've done, so for example, when we've done training events in the past, we basically set up a sequence of emails that obviously reminds people to turn up to the event and all those other bits and pieces. So what you want to do is, first of all, in your form, even if it's hidden in the background and may not be a visible field, you need the date of the event. And then that pushes through to a field in MailChimp, which then is your field. And then you go in and create an automation, which is a date-based automation. And that date-based is based around that particular field. So you can send it 30 days before this event date, 10 days before, 1 day before this particular event. And then obviously all you need to do is, if you're doing the event again in 6 months' time, on that landing page, just change that hidden field from 1st of August through to 1st of March, as it were, and the automation will send exactly the same. So you've got no option from that point of view. That's the best option, as it were. And the one thing you did say as well, you're talking about a location-based segment. Now, whenever people talk about location, I'm always a little bit hesitant how they're doing that, because there's two ways of tracking location. You can ask someone, where do you live? Or you can use the IP address. Now, I always tend to shy away from using the IP address because I don't trust it, to be honest. There's too many ways that it can be hidden, too many ways it can be changed or tweaked or whatever. So I just do it. So what I would suggest is make sure that when you're capturing information up front, if you are able to capture a location, obviously it depends on how wide your net is from a location point of view, have that there. And then with this automation, all you need to do is when that the trigger says send it, kind of like on the date of this automation, or 30 days before this automation, and then you put a filter on the automation that says only send it to people who meet this criteria. In your instance, it would be the physical location they're actually in. So you create your customer journey or your automation. You'd use the date as the core date to trigger it, and then you set it up so that it started 30 or 60 days or whatever it is before the automation, and then you put a filter in for location. And if you did that, then you could do that today, and then in 6 months' time, you could just go back and use exactly the same automation. All you got to do is basically change the date and the location, and everything will hold true. So hopefully that answers your question, Sammy, and that obviously, hopefully you can then set that up to get lots of people to drive into your event and get the right information to make sure that they actually turn up, which is one of the main reasons people want to do that. And I'm sure at some point in the future, we're going to be focusing on event-based marketing and how you can MailChimp to market your events. That'll definitely be something we cover in a future Chimp Chat. Brilliant. Okay, so quick look at news from the world of email. I always like to just spend a couple of minutes to keep you engaged and updated on what's going on in the world. And one thing that certainly came across my inbox in the last couple of days was the announcement that Facebook have purchased what they're calling a newsletter business called Bulletin. And this follows off from Twitter, who've also recently invested in a similar type of thing. Vicky, I know that we've chatted a little bit outside of this about that. What are your thoughts on, kind of what they're trying to do there?
The Facebook one was news to me. I got an email about the Twitter one, and I quickly signed up for it and thought, I'll have a look at this. And I had a little play, and it was very straightforward, simple, nothing as complicated as MailChimp has to offer. I think it's interesting because it's tapping into an existing audience on social media. So if they get the two linked, which I've read about a bit on Facebook, they're trying not to, but if they do get the two linked, then you have access to a massive database of people already. So you might, the legwork of trying to get subscribers might be less. So I'm quite curious in that point of view.
Yeah, be interesting to see how it develops over time. And when I looked at it, my initial reaction was it's what they're so obviously people understand podcasts, But what's happened is that both Apple and Spotify, and probably one or two others, have moved into what I'd call paid podcasts. So you can
Yes.
basically get your podcasts for free, but then you can actually start to subscribe and pay for, enhanced podcasts or, in-depth
Mm.
content, that type of stuff. And what seems to be happening with Facebook with Bulletin, you can go and see this at their website bulletin.com, is that they're trying to kind of like do a similar type of model. So they're getting opinion leaders. So they've got Malcolm
Mm.
Gladwell's on there, Erin Andrews, and Mitch Albom, who are both involved in sports and sports in America. And it's kind of like they're basically paid for columnists, as it were. So it's almost like it's taking the digital magazine, the digital subscription, actually kind of
Yeah.
like moving it a little bit more. But they're calling it newsletters, and I'm sure the newsletters are going to be emailed out, and you will be able to pay for them. So I'd be interested to see how it develops. These are very text based. They're not what I call marketing emails, which obviously is what we focus on from a MailChimp point of view.
Mm.
But it'd be interesting to see how this develops, and certainly it could have an impact onto the traditional email marketing and the world of MailChimp, as it were. So just thought you guys would be interested to learn and see how things are developing from that point of view. Anything else that you spotted? Any articles or things that you've picked up this week that you go, oh, that would be useful or interesting for someone to talk about or look at?
Not well. The review thing was my interesting thing this week because I actually tried it out earlier in the week. So you've stolen my thunder there. Everything else, there was an article about on Forbes and how to make your email stand out, but that's not particularly exciting in the news of world of email.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. And we talked about that last week, didn't we? We talked about how to make your
Yes,
emails look good,
yes,
as it were. So I think
yes.
one thing I'll chuck in as well. It's a marketing newsletter that I've subscribed to a couple of months ago. And again, I'm not a zombie with these people, so I do actually open the occasional email and read it. But basically they send an email every work day, and it's something called Stacked Marketer, and it's kind of like this is what's going on in marketing today. So if you are a marketing agency or someone who's involved in email marketing or SEO, Facebook ads, website design, or whatever, it's a really interesting kind of like digest of what's going on in the world of marketing. What's new in Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, or all those bits and pieces. So certainly, if you haven't visited there or signed up, go and have a look at it. It's completely free, it doesn't cost anything, and I've certainly found it as a great way of keeping myself abreast of what's going on in the email marketing world and the marketing world as a whole. So that's stackedmarketer.com. Go and have a look at that. Cool, right, so we will now come to the end of the episode and just wrap things up. As everyone was going to give Vicky the chance to. So, is there anything that kind of like particularly stood out today that you just want to kind of like make sure and re-emphasize to people with regards to the things that we've talked about?
Um, yeah, I think just being aware that you will have people on your list that are not engaged. So, when you send your email out and you only get an open rate of 20%, you're thinking, oh, why are people not opening my emails? It could just be because you have zombies. So if you take them into account and remove them from your regular send list, your numbers might actually go up. So don't be too disheartened when you think about your stats not being great. It could just be zombies. So they're definitely worth hunting down and making sure that your list is kept healthy if
Yeah,
you can.
couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's a great way of actually wrapping it up. A lot of people we speak to go, oh, my email list has got an open rate of 20% or 30% or whatever. Well, what you've actually got is you've got a proportion of your list who's regularly engaged and a proportion who isn't. The zombies are the one that aren't. So if you stop sending them your regular campaigns and only send the regular campaigns to people who are engaged, then you'll see your open rates go up to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80%, which is, which means that you are sending relevant communication to people who are interested in you, but then you're not throwing away your zombies. You're managing them positively. You're moving them so that you're only sending them an email every month or every quarter, or even if you want to, just actually getting rid of them. But one of the things I'd say is, kind of like my last thing I'd focus on is don't automatically think that a zombie problem is bad. One of my
Yeah.
favourite films, Shaun of the Dead, at the end, what happened was a lot of the zombies were being harnessed and used for cheap labour and other bits and pieces like that. And I still remember it's kind of like, just because they're zombies, it doesn't mean they can't revert back. And it doesn't mean that they're not 100% interested in you. Yes, there's going to be a proportion of zombies that you want to get rid of. But don't just kind of like cast all zombies the same, because zombies can be cured when it comes to your email marketing. Great. So, thanks as ever for your contributions, Vicky. I'll see if I can extend the cake budget to get you back again in the future. But thanks for as ever. Just remember, everyone, you can always catch up on previous episodes on Facebook, on YouTube, or whatever you get your podcast from. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up and just give you a quick tease that next week we're going to be talking about how to get your first 100 subscribers. So we're going to be talking about how you capture, what you can do with them, how you think about it. It's getting started with email marketing for a lot of people is always challenging. So how can you actually get those 100 subscribers into your list? Make sure, obviously, they're engaged. They're not zombies. You don't want the people who come straight onto your list when you're starting who are going to turn into zombies, but get those. Okay, so make sure that you tune in for that. But for now, thanks for watching or listening wherever you are. We'll catch up with you again next time. And remember, always be chimping. Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast really helpful, then here's what you can do next to broaden your understanding of MailChimp. You can join our free Facebook group. It's the biggest MailChimp support group in the world. Just search MailChimp Answers on Facebook. You can take our free MailChimp Medical to find out the health of your MailChimp account and what you can do to improve it. Just visit chimpanswers.com and follow the prompts. And of course, you can get in touch with us. If you like one-to-one support, advice, tips, or whatever, just visit chimpanswers.com, which also has got one of the largest resources of MailChimp blogs and advice available out there to get the information that you need. Thanks again, and we'll see you very soon.